I want you to picture this. Standing in a ballroom full of Manhattan's most powerful corporate attorneys, wearing a dress that cost more than my first car, holding champagne I couldn't even taste anymore, watching my entire future disintegrate in front of 200 witnesses. That's where my story begins. Or maybe where it ends, depending on how you look at it. Before I go any further, I need you to do something for me. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching this from, because what I'm about to tell you transcends geography. Betrayal speaks every language. Humiliation knows no borders. And revenge, well, revenge is universal. Also, check the description box below for more stories like this one, because trust me, you're going to want to follow what happens next. My name is Rebecca, and I'm 43 years old. I'm telling you this because age matters in this story. When you're in your 20s, humiliation feels temporary. In your 30s, it feels like a setback. But when you're in your 40s, when you've already rebuilt yourself once or twice, when you've survived divorce, career changes, the death of dreams you didn't even know you had, betrayal at that age doesn't just hurt. It calcifies. It becomes something else entirely. I met Marcus Holloway 3 years before that gala. I was working as a compliance consultant for mid-sized financial firms, and he was a senior partner at Holloway & Ridge, one of those white-shoe law firms with offices on the 63rd floor and marble bathrooms that echo when you cry in them. Not that I knew about the crying part yet. Marcus was everything I thought I wanted after my divorce from Tom. Where Tom had been passive and checked out, Marcus was ambitious and present. Where Tom forgot anniversaries, Marcus remembered the name of my childhood dog. He was tall, silver-haired at 49, with the kind of confidence that comes from never having been truly rejected in his life. He wore Tom Ford suits and played golf with federal judges and knew wine lists in 4 languages. I should have known better, but you know what they say about hindsight. We got engaged after 18 months. He proposed at per se, got down on one knee right there between courses while the entire restaurant watched. The ring was perfect. Emerald-cut diamond, platinum band, exactly what I would have chosen if he'd asked. That should have been my first clue. Marcus didn't ask. He knew. He always knew everything. The gala was supposed to be our debut as an engaged couple to his professional world. Marcus had kept our relationship relatively quiet at work. He said it was because mixing personal and professional made things complicated, and I believed him because I wanted to. I'd met some of his colleagues at casual events, but this was different. This was the firm's annual winter gala, black tie, held at the plaza, with every partner, associate, and major client in attendance. I spent 3 hours getting ready that night. I'd had my hair done at a salon in Tribeca that Marcus's ex-wife used to go to. The dress was midnight blue silk, custom-fitted, with a back that dipped just low enough to be elegant but not desperate. I looked good. No, I looked incredible. When Marcus picked me up, he barely glanced at me. Just checked his watch and said we were running 7 minutes behind schedule. That should have been my second clue. We arrived at the plaza just after 8. The ballroom was exactly what you'd expect. Crystal chandeliers, ice sculptures, waiters gliding through crowds with trays of champagne, and canapes that cost more per bite than some people's hourly wage. I recognized several faces from photographs Marcus had shown me, the managing partner, department heads, rainmaking partners who billed $4 million a year. Marcus introduced me to a few people, his hand on the small of my back, proprietorial but not quite warm. "This is Rebecca," he'd say, and then nothing else. Not my last name, not what I did, not even my fiancé. Just Rebecca, like I was a first draft. About 45 minutes in, Marcus excused himself to use the restroom. I stood near the bar, nursing my second glass of champagne, making small talk with a partner's wife about vacation homes in the Hamptons. The kind of conversation that feels like work. Then I saw them. Marcus emerged from a hallway that led to the conference rooms on the mezzanine level. He wasn't alone. Walking beside him, her hand tucked into the crook of his arm, was Simone Reed. I knew who she was. Marcus had mentioned his new assistant several times over the past 6 months, always in passing, always neutrally. 28 years old, Stanford Law, working as his junior associate while studying for the New York bar. She was beautiful in that effortless way that women in their 20s are beautiful. Smooth skin, bright eyes, not a single worry line etched between her eyebrows yet. She was also wearing a dress, almost identical to mine. Midnight blue silk. Different designer, different cut, but close enough that the message was clear. They walked to the center of the ballroom. People noticed. Conversations faltered. The string quartet kept playing, but suddenly the music felt like it was coming from underwater. Marcus raised his hand, and somehow, impossibly, people actually quieted down. Like he was about to give a toast. Like this was a moment we were all supposed to witness. If you've ever had your heart broken in public, you know the exact sensation I'm describing. That split second where time dilates, where you know something terrible is coming but your body hasn't caught up to your brain yet. You're still smiling because your face hasn't gotten the message. "I want to say something," Marcus announced, his voice carrying across the ballroom with the confidence of a man who'd argued cases before appellate courts. "Most of you have met Rebecca tonight." He gestured toward me, and suddenly 200 pairs of eyes were on me. She's been a wonderful companion. Very accommodating. Very understanding. My throat closed. But I think it's time to be honest. He turned to Simone, and the expression on his face was something I'd never seen before. Not in 3 years. Genuine warmth. Actual joy. Simone is who I actually want. Rebecca, you were just my placeholder. The room erupted in laughter. Not full, belly-aching laughter, but that awkward, uncomfortable laughter people make when they don't know what else to do. Nervous titters from women who were grateful it wasn't them. Chuckles from men who were impressed by Marcus's audacity or horrified by his cruelty or both. I stood there, champagne glass still in my hand, and felt something inside me go very, very quiet. It wasn't rage yet. It wasn't even sadness. It was something colder. Calcification, like I said. The moment when soft tissue turns to stone. I looked at Marcus. Then at Simone, who had the decency to look away. Then back at Marcus. I nodded once. Finished my champagne in a single, smooth swallow. Set the glass down on the nearest table with just enough force that it made a sharp clink. And I walked out without saying a single word. Behind me, I heard the laughter die. Heard someone whisper, "Jesus Christ." Heard the string quartet pick up tempo, trying to fill the sudden, yawning silence with Vivaldi. I made it to the elevator. Made it to the lobby. Made it to Fifth Avenue where it had started snowing, tiny flakes that melted the instant they touched the pavement. That's when I started laughing. Not crying, laughing. Because here's what Marcus didn't know. For the past 7 months, I'd been doing compliance work for Holloway and Ridge. Not public work, private consultation through a third-party firm, analyzing their internal financial structures. And I'd found things. Irregularities. Patterns that made my stomach hurt. I'd compiled everything, cross-referenced it with federal regulations, and tucked it away because I thought I was protecting the man I loved. Placeholder. That's what he called me. I pulled out my phone, snow melting on the screen, and made 3 calls. The first was to my attorney. The second was to an investigative journalist at the New York Times who tried to source me for a story about law firm corruption 6 months earlier. The third was to the New York State Bar Association ethics hotline. Then I went home, poured myself a Real drink, and started writing. If you're still with me, hit that subscribe button. Because what I did in the next 72 hours didn't just end Marcus's career. It ended his firm. And honestly, I've never slept better in my life. You want to know the thing about revenge that movies never get right? It's not quick. It's not a single, satisfying moment where you stand triumphant while your enemy crumbles. Real revenge is methodical. It's paperwork and phone calls and evidence documentation at 2 a.m. when you can't sleep because your hands are shaking with something that's half fury and half vindication. That night, after the gala, I didn't sleep. I sat in my apartment in Brooklyn, the one-bedroom walk-up I'd kept even after Marcus suggested I move into his place in Tribeca, and I opened every file I'd saved over the past 7 months. Here's what you need to understand about compliance work. It's boring until it isn't. You're looking at spreadsheets, transaction records, billing statements, client trust accounts. Most of the time, everything is exactly what it should be. But sometimes, if you know what patterns to look for, you start seeing the gaps, the inconsistencies, the places where money moves in ways that don't quite make sense. Holloway and Ridge had hired the firm I contracted with to do a routine audit. Standard practice for firms of their size, especially when they're trying to attract certain high-profile clients who want assurance that everything is above board. I was the senior analyst assigned to their account, working under an NDA that meant I couldn't discuss findings without going through proper channels. What I'd found would have been enough to file a preliminary report with concerns. Not enough to prove wrongdoing, but enough to trigger a more thorough investigation. I'd been preparing to do exactly that when Marcus proposed. And like an idiot, like a woman who wanted to believe that love could coexist with integrity, I'd convinced myself to wait. To talk to Marcus first. To give him a chance to explain. Placeholder. I pulled up the master file I'd created. 63 pages of cross-referenced transaction records, client billing statements, and partner distribution documents. The patterns were there. Client funds being moved through the firm's operating accounts instead of trust accounts. Billing inflation that was just subtle enough to avoid immediate detection. And the real smoking gun, a series of transfers between the firm's accounts and an offshore entity in the Cayman Islands that had no clear business purpose. Marcus's name was on 14 of the 27 suspicious transactions. I made coffee at midnight, started writing. By 3 a.m., I had a 20-page summary with exhibits. By 5 a.m., I had sworn affidavits ready for signature. By 7 a.m., when the sun came up over Brooklyn and I still hadn't changed out of that goddamn blue dress, I had a complete package ready for delivery. The journalist's name was Patricia Moreno. I'd met her at a conference 2 years earlier, back when I was still married to Tom, and thought my biggest problem was boredom. She was investigating financial misconduct at major law firms, particularly around client trust funds. When she'd approached me about Holloway and Ridge, I declined. Conflict of interest, professional ethics, all the usual reasons. I called her at 9 a.m., after I'd showered and changed, and put on the kind of armor that looks like business casual. Patricia, this is Rebecca Chin. We met in Boston. You asked me about law firm trust accounts. I remember. Her voice was sharp, alert. You told me you couldn't help. I couldn't. Now I can. I sent her everything. Not through email. That would be traceable and potentially inadmissible. I used an encrypted file-sharing service and gave her a burner phone number for follow-up questions. Then I contacted the New York State Bar Association and filed a formal complaint, attaching the same documentation with a cover letter explaining my relationship to Marcus and my professional obligation to report suspected misconduct. The final call was to my own attorney, David Margolis. David was 67, semi-retired, and the most methodical human I'd ever met. He'd handled my divorce from Tom 5 years earlier, and he'd been the one to review my engagement to Marcus with the kind of skepticism that I'd found insulting at the time. "Rebecca," he said when he picked up, "I'm going to guess this isn't about wedding planning. He humiliated me last night. At his firm gala. In front of everyone. Silence. Then, tell me everything." I did. Every detail. The dress, the announcement, the laughter. When I finished, David was quiet for a long moment. "What did you do?" "What you told me to do. I protected my assets. 6 months earlier, when Marcus had suggested combining our finances after the engagement, David had advised me to keep everything separate until after the wedding. At the time, I thought he was being paranoid. Now I realized he'd been protecting me from exactly this. And David prompted, and I just filed a bar complaint against him and sent evidence of potential client trust fund violations to an investigative journalist. Another pause. "Jesus, Rebecca. Too much. Not enough. We need to get ahead of this. He's going to retaliate. Let him try." But David was right to worry. By noon, my phone started ringing. Marcus called 17 times before I blocked his number. Then he started texting. *, we need to talk. This is insane, *. *, you're overreacting. It was a joke, *. Rebecca, please. We can work this out, *. Don't do anything stupid. That last one made me laugh. Too late. Then Simone called. That surprised me. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "Rebecca." Her voice was younger than I expected, less confident. "I need to talk to you." "I don't think we have anything to discuss, Simone. Please. Just 5 minutes. Marcus doesn't know I'm calling." Something in her tone made me pause. Fear, maybe. Or guilt. Fine. 5 minutes. We met at a coffee shop in Midtown, neutral territory. She arrived wearing jeans and a sweater, looking like the Stanford graduate student she'd been 2 years earlier, instead of the other woman from the gala. Her eyes were red. "I didn't know," she said before I even sat down. "About you. I mean, I knew you existed, but Marcus told me you two were basically over. That you were just coasting until he figured out how to end things gracefully. And you believed him. I'm 28. I've been working 80-hour weeks for the past year trying to pass the bar and prove myself at the firm. He's a senior partner. Charming. Attentive. He told me I was brilliant and special and—" She stopped, wiped her eyes. God, I sound pathetic. I should have hated her. Part of me did. But the larger part recognized something familiar in her face, the expression of someone realizing they've been used. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because he's panicking. He got a call this morning from someone at the Bar Association, and a reporter contacted the firm asking for comment on trust fund discrepancies." She looked at me directly. "That was you, wasn't it?" I didn't answer. "He's destroying documents. He's been in his office since 6 a.m. with the shredder running. I saw him deleting emails. Rebecca, I think he's going to try to pin whatever you found on other people at the firm." My coffee went cold in my hands. "Who?" "Junior associates. Maybe some of the partners he doesn't like. Anyone but himself." That's when I knew this wasn't just about humiliation anymore. Marcus wasn't just a cheating fiancé. He was a man who'd built a career on appearing untouchable, and he was willing to sacrifice anyone to maintain that image. "Simone, did you work on any of the accounts I'm thinking about? The offshore transfers?" She went pale. He had me prepare some of the documentation. He said it was routine asset protection for high-net-worth clients. It wasn't. Oh, God. She put her head in her hands. I could lose my career before it even starts. I made a decision then. Maybe it was strategic. Maybe it was compassion for the younger version of myself I saw in her. Probably both. "Do you still have access to Marcus's files?" She nodded slowly. "Then we need to move fast, before he destroys everything. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, leave a comment about how you handled it. Because what I did next wasn't just revenge, it was justice. And sometimes they're the same thing." Make sure to check the description box below for more stories like this. People think the hardest part of revenge is the execution. It's not. The hardest part is the waiting. Those hours between when you set everything in motion and when the consequences start to land. You have to sit there, normal life continuing around you, knowing that somewhere, dominoes are falling in sequence, and there's no way to stop them even if you wanted to. Which I didn't. Simone and I worked through the next 18 hours like we were preparing for a trial. Because in a way we were. She had access to Marcus's digital files through the firm's document management system, including emails and work product that he probably assumed were protected by attorney-client privilege. They weren't. Not when they involved potential fraud. We met at my apartment. She brought her laptop and an external hard drive, and I provided coffee, snacks, and a systematic approach to evidence preservation. The first thing we did was create a comprehensive backup of everything in Marcus's files before he could delete more. Then we started categorizing client communications, financial records, internal memos, emails that referenced the offshore accounts. "This one," Simone said around 2 a.m., her voice tight. "Look at this email chain. It was from 8 months earlier, between Marcus and another senior partner named Richard Holloway, the Holloway and Ridge, the firm's co-founder. The subject line was Cayman account reconciliation. The email chain was careful, coded in the way that people use when they know they're discussing something questionable but want plausible deniability. References to alternative fee structures and creative billing approaches and keeping client relationships flexible. But one email, sent late at night when Richard was probably tired or drunk or both, was more explicit. Marcus, we've been doing this for 12 years. The clients never audit this closely. Just keep the transfers small enough to avoid triggering the $10,000 reporting requirement, and we're fine. Jesus, I whispered. This isn't just Marcus. This is institutional. Simone's face had gone white. Half the partners probably know, or at least suspect. Which means when this breaks, it won't just be one career ending. She looked at me. Is that what you want? I thought about that question. Did I want to destroy an entire law firm because one man humiliated me? But then I remembered standing in that ballroom, remembered the laughter, remembered every junior associate and client and spouse who'd witnessed that moment and would tell the story for years. Remember when Marcus Holloway brought his assistant to the gala and dumped his fiancé in front of everyone? I want the truth to come out, I said. Whatever that means. By dawn, we had everything organized, cross-referenced, and backed up in 3 separate locations. I sent the enhanced evidence package to Patricia Moreno with a note. * source protection critical. My involvement cannot be disclosed until after publication. *. Then I collapsed on my couch and slept for 4 hours. I woke up to my phone ringing. David Margolis. The Times is running the story tomorrow morning, he said without preamble. They just called for my comment as your attorney. My heart started racing. What did you say? No comment. But Rebecca, you need to be ready. This is going to be nuclear. Good. I'm serious. Marcus will come after you. The firm will come after you. They'll claim you violated your NDA, that you stole confidential information, that you're a disgruntled ex-partner with an axe to grind. Let them. I documented everything. I followed proper whistleblower protocols. And I have an eyewitness who worked directly with Marcus on the questionable transactions. Simone Reed. It wasn't a question. David was too good at his job to not have figured that out. She's putting her career on the line. She's protecting it. If she stays quiet, and this comes out anyway, she looks complicit. And if the bar determines she should have reported the irregularities herself, then we argue she was a junior associate operating under the supervision and instruction of senior partners, that she acted in good faith, and that when she learned the full scope of the misconduct, she immediately cooperated with investigations. David was quiet for a moment. You've thought about this. I've thought about nothing else for 72 hours. All right, I'll prepare a statement for when the story drops. In the meantime, stay off social media. Don't talk to any reporters except Patricia. And Rebecca? Yeah. For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Even if it gets ugly. It got ugly. The Times story ran on Tuesday morning with the headline, Elite Manhattan Law Firm Faces Fraud Investigation Following Whistleblower Complaint. Patricia's reporting was meticulous. She corroborated my evidence with independent sources, interviewed former clients who confirmed billing irregularities, and obtained comments from the Bar Association confirming an active investigation. Marcus's name appeared 17 times in the article. Richard Holloway's appeared 23 times. By noon, 3 major clients had announced they were suspending their relationships with Holloway and Ridge pending the investigation's outcome. By 3 p.m., 2 junior partners had retained their own counsel. By 5 p.m., the firm had issued a statement denying any wrongdoing and promising full cooperation with all relevant authorities. That's when Marcus called me from a number I didn't recognize. You destroyed me. His voice was barely controlled rage. Do you understand what you've done? I reported suspected financial misconduct to appropriate authorities. That's what compliance professionals are ethically obligated to do. You vindictive bitch. This was about the gala, wasn't it? I embarrassed you, so you decided to burn down my entire life. Something hot flashed through me. No, Marcus. This was about you committing fraud. The gala just made me stop protecting you. I never touched client funds. Those offshore accounts were for legitimate tax planning. Then you should have no problem proving that to the Bar Association. I'll sue you for everything you have. Go ahead. Discovery will be fascinating. He hung up. I sat there shaking, adrenaline making my hands tremble. David had warned me this would happen. The threats, the intimidation, the attempt to make me doubt myself. But underneath the fear was something else, clarity. For 3 years, I'd made myself smaller to fit into Marcus's life. I'd ignored red flags and rationalized dismissive treatment and convinced myself that love meant compromise. Placeholder. That's what I'd been. Now I was something else entirely. Wednesday morning brought more fallout. The New York State Bar Association announced a formal investigation into Holloway and Ridge's client trust account practices. The firm's malpractice insurance carrier sent a letter declining to cover potential claims related to the fraud allegations. And 3 more senior associates, including 2 women I'd met at the gala, resigned, citing ethical concerns. Simone called me Wednesday afternoon, her voice shaking. They suspended me, pending the investigation. Marcus told the managing partner I was the one who mishandled the offshore account documentation. Did you keep copies of the emails showing he directed you to prepare those documents? Yes. And I already sent them to my attorney. Then you're going to be fine. Better than fine, you're going to be the associate who had the integrity to come forward. I'm 28 and unemployed, Rebecca. You're 28 and employable. There's a difference. When this is over, every firm in New York will want to hire the woman who chose ethics over a senior partner's protection. I hoped I was right. By Thursday, 72 hours after I walked out of that gala, Holloway and Ridge was in complete meltdown. The managing partner announced an indefinite leave of absence. 6 partners formed an internal committee to investigate the allegations independently. Marcus was placed on administrative leave, and the firm's website, which had once showcased glossy photos of smiling attorneys and impressive case results, now featured a single paragraph about their commitment to ethical practice and client protection. I watched it all unfold from my apartment in Brooklyn, drinking coffee and eating takeout and feeling something I hadn't felt in 3 years, like myself again. Patricia Moreno called Thursday evening. You're a ghost in the story, but people are starting to ask questions. The firm knows someone gave me the documents. They're going to figure out it was you eventually. I know. I'm ready. Are you sure? Because they're going to come after you hard. Patricia, I spent 3 years watching a man I love treat me like an accessory. I let him make me small because I thought that's what partnership meant. But you know what I learned? Some people don't want a partner. They want an audience. She was quiet for a moment. That's a good line. Can I use it? I laughed, surprising myself. Sure. Just attribute it to a source familiar with the investigation. Rebecca, why did you really do this? And don't tell me it was just about compliance. You could have filed a quiet complaint and walked away. I thought about her question, about standing in that ballroom, about the laughter, about the moment I realized that Marcus had never seen me as fully human, just as a role I played in his life until someone better came along. Because, I said slowly, I wanted him to know what it feels like when your entire world collapses in front of witnesses. When people you thought respected you realize you're not who you pretended to be. When everything you built turns out to be constructed on lies. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but nobody tells you about the indigestion that comes after. The weeks following the Times article were a blur of legal consultations, bar association interviews, and late-night second-guessing that tasted like acid reflux. You spend so much energy executing your plan that you forget to prepare for what comes after. The silence, the waiting, the slow realization that destroying someone else's life doesn't actually repair your own. Marcus tried to mount a defense. His attorneys released a statement claiming I had stolen confidential information, violated my NDA, and fabricated evidence because I was emotionally unstable following our breakup. They painted me as a jilted lover who'd weaponized professional access to punish a man for ending a relationship. It might have worked if not for 3 things: Simone's corroborating testimony, the independent audit the Bar Association conducted that confirmed the financial irregularities, and the fact that 2 former Holloway and Ridge clients came forward with their own complaints about suspicious billing practices. By the end of the first month, Marcus had been suspended from practicing law pending the investigation's conclusion. Richard Holloway resigned from the firm he'd co-founded 30 years earlier. And Holloway and Ridge, once one of Manhattan's most prestigious law firms, announced it was dissolving, with remaining partners forming smaller practices or joining other firms. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt hollow. David Margolis took me to lunch in February, 2 months after the gala. We sat in a quiet restaurant in Brooklyn, the kind of place where nobody cared about Manhattan law firm drama. How are you holding up? He asked. I honestly don't know. The Bar Association cleared you of any ethical violations. Your NDA had a whistleblower exception. You followed proper protocols. Rebecca, you won. Then why do I feel like this? Like what? Like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like I destroyed something massive, and now I'm just standing in the rubble wondering what I built in its place. David cut his food methodically. Revenge doesn't heal the wound. It just makes sure the other person has won too. You think I was wrong. I think you were human. He humiliated you. You had the power to hold him accountable, and you used it. But accountability and healing are different things. One is about him. One is about you. I push my salad around my plate. I keep replaying that moment in the ballroom. The way he looked at her. Like she was the sun and I was just a placeholder. I can't stop thinking about all the times I made myself smaller. The dinners where I let him order for me. The conversations where I didn't correct him even though he was wrong. The way I started dressing differently, talking differently, being different because I thought that's what he wanted. Did you love him, Rebecca? Or did you love being chosen by him? That question landed like a punch. I sat there, wine glass halfway to my lips, and realized I didn't have an answer. I don't know, I finally said. And that's worse than anything he did to me. Because it means I betrayed myself long before he did. Simone and I stayed in contact. She found a new position at a mid-sized firm specializing in corporate compliance. Ironic, given everything, and was scheduled to take the bar exam in July. We met for coffee occasionally, two women bound by the shared experience of loving the wrong man and finding the courage to walk away from him. Do you regret it? She asked me once. Burning it all down. Do you? I asked first. I thought about it. No, but I regret needing to. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. She stirred her latte. I keep thinking about all the women who stayed quiet. The associates who saw things that didn't add up but convinced themselves it wasn't their place to question senior partners. The wives who knew their husbands were cheating but stayed because of the lifestyle. We could have been them. We were them. For a while. But we're not anymore. Patricia Moreno won a regional journalism award for her coverage of the Holloway and Ridge collapse. She called to thank me, even though officially I was still an anonymous source. You changed a lot of lives, she said. Junior associates at other firms are reporting misconduct they might have ignored before. The Bar Association is implementing new oversight protocols for client trust accounts. You started something bigger than you realize. I just wanted him to hurt the way he hurt me. Maybe. But you also wanted the truth to matter. And it did. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment, the one-bedroom walk-up in Brooklyn that had witnessed every stage of the story, and let myself cry for the first time since the gala. Not angry tears or vindictive tears, but something deeper, grief for the woman I'd been, the relationship I'd thought I had, the future I'd imagined that never existed outside my own hope. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. Asterisk, this is Jennifer Holloway, Richard's daughter. I need to talk to you about my father. Asterisk. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Why? Asterisk, because he's dying. Cancer. He has maybe 6 weeks. And he won't stop talking about you. Asterisk. We met at a hospital in Upper Manhattan. Jennifer was 35, a pediatrician, with her father's sharp eyes and her mother's gentle voice. She led me to a private room where Richard Holloway lay in a hospital bed, looking nothing like the powerful attorney whose name was on a building. Rebecca Chun, he said, his voice thin. I wasn't sure you'd come. I wasn't sure, either. Jennifer excused herself. The room felt too small, too quiet, too full of unspoken things. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Richard said. I don't deserve it. What Marcus and I did, what the firm did, was wrong. We rationalized it for years. Client expectations, competitive pressure, lifestyle maintenance. But it was theft. Sophisticated, legalized theft. And we destroyed lives to protect it. I didn't say anything. You know what I think about lying here? He gestured weakly at the 4 lines, the monitors, all those junior associates we blamed when things went wrong, the clients we overbilled, the colleagues we pushed out when they asked uncomfortable questions. I built a career on looking untouchable. Turns out mortality doesn't care about reputation. Why are you telling me this? Because you're the only person who had the courage to tell the truth when it cost you something. And because I wanted you to know what you did was right, even though it destroyed everything I built. Especially because it destroyed everything I built. He died 3 weeks later. Jennifer called to tell me. I didn't attend the funeral. That felt like overstepping some invisible boundary, but I sent flowers with a card that said simply, Truth matters. Marcus reached out in April. An email sent from a generic address. Asterisk Rebecca, I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not even asking you to respond. But I need you to know that I'm sorry. Not for ending our relationship, we both know that wasn't working. But for how I did it. for humiliating you, for treating you like you were disposable. You deserve better. You deserve the truth. Instead, I gave you cruelty because I was too cowardly to have an honest conversation. I'm in therapy now. I'm working on understanding why I needed to diminish you to feel powerful. It's probably too late to matter to you, but I'm trying to be different. I'm trying to be someone who wouldn't do what I did. I hope you're healing. I hope you found happiness. I hope you know that what happened wasn't about your worth, it was about my weakness. Marcus asterisk. I read that email 17 times. Wanted to respond, didn't respond, drafted responses and deleted them. Finally sent back 5 words. I hope you mean that. He replied immediately, I'm trying to. That was 6 months ago. I haven't heard from him since. I don't know if he's practicing law again, or if the Bar Association permanently revoked his license. I don't know if he's with Simone, or someone else, or alone. And I've learned that not knowing is okay. His life isn't my responsibility anymore. It never really was. I started dating again in the summer. Nothing serious. Coffee dates, museum visits, conversations with men who didn't need me to be smaller to make them feel bigger. I went on a date with a high school teacher named Paul who talked about his students with genuine affection and asked me questions about my work and actually listened to the answers. We're still seeing each other. It's slow and uncertain, and nothing like the certainty I thought I had with Marcus. But it feels honest in a way that matters more than passion. Simone passed the bar exam in July. She called me crying, and I cried too, both of us laughing at how ridiculous we sounded. She's building the career she deserves now, one case at a time, with a reputation for integrity that follows her like a shield. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we'd stayed quiet? She asked me once, late at night over wine on my fire escape. Every day. And I think we'd be smaller. Safer maybe, but definitely smaller. She nodded, understanding what I meant without needing explanation. Some safety comes at the cost of yourself. Last month, I was invited to speak at a conference for compliance professionals. The topic was ethical decision-making in complex organizational environments, which is a fancy way of saying what to do when you discover your employer or client is breaking the law. I almost declined. The thought of standing in front of people and telling the story, of making myself vulnerable in that way, made my stomach hurt. But then I thought about all the women who might be sitting in that audience. The ones in relationships where they're making themselves smaller. The ones who've discovered something wrong at work but are afraid to report it. The ones who think that keeping the peace is more important than telling the truth. So I said yes. I stood on that stage in Chicago, in front of 300 people, and told them about the gala. About Marcus and the midnight blue dress and the laughter. About the 72 hours that followed. About the cost of truth and the price of silence. When I finished, the room was completely quiet. Then a woman in the 3rd row stood up and started clapping. Then another, until the entire room was on their feet, and I was crying on stage like an idiot, overwhelmed by the realization that my pain had become something else. Permission for other people to choose themselves. Afterward, dozens of people approached me, told me their stories, the harassment they'd reported, the fraud they'd exposed, the relationships they'd left, the times they'd chosen truth over comfort and paid the price and survived anyway. One woman, maybe in her 50s, with silver hair and kind eyes, took my hand and said, "Thank you for showing us that we don't have to stay small to be loved." That's when I understood something crucial. Revenge wasn't what healed me. Truth was. Not the truth about Marcus's crimes or the firm's corruption, but the deeper truth that I'd been hiding from myself for 3 years. That I'd been settling. That I'd been performing. That I'd been so afraid of being alone that I'd chosen to be lonely in a relationship instead. The gala didn't break me. It freed me. These days, I still live in that one-bedroom walk-up in Brooklyn. I still do compliance consulting, though I'm much more selective about my clients now. I still have moments where I wake up at 3 a.m. and wonder if I did the right thing, if the destruction I caused was proportional to the harm I experienced. But mostly, I feel something I haven't felt in years. Whole. Not healed. I don't know if we ever fully heal from betrayal. But whole. Complete in myself. Not waiting for someone else to choose me. Not performing to be worthy of love. Not making myself smaller to fit into someone else's idea of who I should be. I saw Marcus once, about 3 months ago. Pure chance. We were at the same coffee shop in Midtown. He was sitting alone, working on a laptop, looking older and thinner and somehow diminished. For a moment, I considered walking over, saying something, acknowledging the strange intimacy of shared destruction. But then I realized I didn't need to. He wasn't part of my story anymore. He was just a chapter I'd closed, a lesson I'd learned, a version of myself I'd outgrown. So I ordered my coffee, nodded politely in his direction when he looked up and saw me, and walked out into the New York afternoon feeling nothing but relief. Last week, I got an email from a woman I didn't know. The subject line was, "Thank you for Chicago." The email read, *Miss Chun, I attended your talk in Chicago last month. I've been in a relationship for 5 years with a man who treats me like a supporting character in his life. After hearing your story, I ended things. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. But last night, for the first time in years, I fell asleep without that tight feeling in my chest that I've been carrying around forever. I just wanted you to know, you changed my life. Thank you for having the courage to change yours first. I read that email 3 times, crying by the end. Because that's the thing about pain. When you transform it into truth, when you refuse to let it make you smaller, it stops being just your pain. It becomes a bridge other people can walk across. So here's what I want you to understand. This story isn't really about revenge. It's about reclamation. Reclaiming your voice, your worth, your right to take up space in the world without apologizing for it. Marcus thought he could reduce me to a placeholder, a temporary fixture in his life story. Instead, he gave me the catalyst I needed to become the main character in my own. And you know what? I've never been happier. If you stayed with me through this entire story, thank you. If you're living your own version of this right now, whether it's a bad relationship, a toxic job, a situation where you're making yourself smaller to make someone else comfortable, I want you to know you don't have to stay. The cost of leaving is real. The fallout is real. The uncertainty is real. But the freedom on the other side? That's real too. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and telling the truth? What did you choose, and what did it cost you? I read every single comment, and your stories matter. And please, check the description box below for more stories like this one. Stories about survival, transformation, and the messy, complicated courage it takes to choose yourself. Life is too short to be anyone's placeholder, including your own.